My talk title today is The Road of Happiness. Spoiler alert. You are not on a road headed to a destination that has a big sign that says city limits of happiness, right? Congratulations, you made it to happiness. No, we're driving the road of happiness. And this road goes through all of life and all the different situations we can find ourselves in. But we've got to remain dedicated to drive it, right? So when we're riding firmly in the spiritual lane on this road of happiness, we are experiencing growing abundance of all kinds, right? So this summer we're exploring the 5 types of wealth. That's what we're talking about all summer. Yeah, we're talking about financial wealth, but we're also talking about physical wealth, mental wealth, time wealth, and social wealth. And today I want to specifically talk about social wealth, because social wealth is built on the foundation of self-worth, right? So I don't know about you, but the message of self-love really wasn't one I heard very often as I grew up. So how do we learn to love ourselves? So if social wealth is built on the foundation of self-love, if we're going to invite more social blessings into our lives, we got to start there by raising our own sense of self-value. So this morning, I want to explore this topic of finding greater self-worth. And I'm going to start by telling you about 2 really impactful moments in my life. These are 2 times in my life that I can remember being moved to instant tears. Not just crying, but instant tears. The first time is interesting to talk about today because the first time was in 1993. I was in Washington, D.C., and I was riding this very long escalator up to the top of the Smithsonian Metro station. If you've ever been there, you know that that escalator is like one of the longest in the world, truly. And when I reached the top, I found myself in an absolute sea of rainbow flags and hundreds and thousands of people at the March on Washington for Gay Rights in 1993. Actually, watching the No Kings events a few weeks ago reminded me of this moment. First of all, I had never seen so many human beings in one place at a time, and never in my life had I witnessed such a powerful display of self-acceptance and social connection and celebration of individual expression. And the tears just flowed down my cheeks. I'm like, what's wrong with me? This is so beautiful. It was just one of those things. And the second time I burst into instant tears was in 2001 when I sat for the very first time at the Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle. As I sat in the chair, very similar to the ones you are sitting in, an environment very similar to this one, I found myself surrounded by hundreds of people expressing the understanding of oneness and unity that somehow and miraculously enveloped me and my daughter. And the message there was very similar to the message here, which is, it's about my inherent goodness. And the music just kind of pierced directly into my heart. And as the tears began to flow, the friend who invited me there actually needed to check on me. She's like, are you okay? I was more than okay. And these 2 instant tears experiences illustrate the same story, and it's a universal one. It's a story that we're telling ourselves as we live our lives. See, I believe that we're on a journey when we're born into this human existence, this magic suit on this physical plane. And it's a journey toward greater personally determined self-value. A journey towards self-love, a journey on the road of happiness. But the interesting part of this mysterious journey is that in our childhoods or in our early adulthoods, we seem to be set up in situations and have experiences that deeply challenge our ability to love ourselves. Am I right? Right. It seems to me a universal truth is that we are given what I call a set of self-love puzzles to solve. And I talk about self-love puzzles in classes and things like that, so this may not be a new concept for you. But we get our entire lifetimes to figure out the puzzles, and the earlier in life we solve them, the greater our social wealth can grow. And as we solve them, we move towards the prize. I'm going to talk more about the prize in a minute. First, I want to talk about self-love puzzles. So if this is true, what are your self-love puzzles and how were they set up for you? Okay? So as I examine my own life, I can see many of them pretty easily, and others I have to find kind of by looking more closely at patterns in my life. So during this talk, I'm going to give you some ideas of where to look to find your own self-love puzzles. You're going to be looking for things about yourself that may have caused you to kind of like squirm in shame, or perhaps these things still make you uncomfortable when other people notice them. Things you may be inclined to like mask or hide about yourself because they seem to somehow diminish your self-worth. Let's see if we can stand on some common ground here this morning. So first of all, I had to learn to love my body, okay? So this actually seems to be a very common self-love puzzle that shows up in adolescence usually, but sometimes a little bit earlier. So for me, I was always taller, I know, shock, taller than most of the girls, and I was always chubbier too, and still to this day, I have many, many moments to work on this particular puzzle, but I lived this one daily until about age 40. Because these magic suits, they're fraught with opportunities for self-love challenges to be set up, right? So perhaps you feel like you're too short or too squatty or too ethnic or too skinny or too something, or perhaps you have a disability or a physical feature that kind of embarrasses you, and somehow our bodies tend to be so easily compared to others that we can quickly feel different and separate and unworthy. And sometimes our magic suits have brought us into situations and experiences that cause us deep shame. It's a self-love challenge, and I truly believe that all of us have had a puzzle to solve about our bodies. It's part of the experience of being human. And if we don't solve this one, it can be a lifelong experience. And this puzzle can definitely block the flow of self-love and therefore block social wealth pretty easily. And then my second big puzzle was about my sexual orientation. So maybe for you it isn't sexual orientation that makes you different, but try to identify something that might be similar than that. Perhaps you were a different race than the majority of those around you, or experienced a different socioeconomic status than was what was considered normal or acceptable as you grew up. Maybe that you had a different way of being in your family. Like sometimes just families in general are just weird, right? And it's hard for to, if I'm a part of this family, then somehow I don't have the worthiness of other people. So how were you different, right? So this self-love puzzle of being different sets a belief up that we are separate. And we solve this puzzle by growing an awareness of oneness. And when we become more aware of oneness, we open up our channel for greater love and connection with others. So as was the case for almost everyone my age or older, being gay simply was not acceptable. It wasn't even discussed in my hometown, my small little place, you know. And thankfully, this puzzle didn't show up in my mind as a remote possibility until I was safely away at, wait for it, a conservative Southern Baptist college, where being gay meant immediate dismissal from college. So this puzzle knot was tied even tighter by the fact that I was on a full-ride academic scholarship, so a whole lot was at stake, riding on my ability to keep my newfound gayness a tremendous secret, right? Spirit has a sense of humor, right? So it took me almost 10 years between my realizing I was gay and that 1993 March on Washington moment. And during those 10 years, I took little baby steps out of the closet, and then I retreated back to kind of like shameful silence. And I had to learn to love myself around just my small circle of friends. And then I kept expanding that circle of love wider and wider to eventually include my family, thank goodness, my coworkers, the wider gay community, and finally the entire public by going to the March on Washington. I was even willing to risk being on television for the entire world to see. So no wonder these tears of freedom kind of fell, right? And interestingly enough, it was that same self-love puzzle that brought me to my spiritual living center in Seattle, right? I knew that I needed to find some place where my daughter's family would not be shamed, like we would be accepted. So I was looking for some place. So I found this spiritual living center. And being raised in fundamental Christianity, I was taught that the love of God was not available to me if I was gay. Can y'all relate? Some people can relate, right? To be lovable in my upbringing was to have faith in the God of my father's understanding. So I walked around afraid to love myself in the shame of religious kind of rejection. I was 37 when I found the Science of Mind. And I discovered that not only was I lovable, I was love itself. Love flowed through me. And then I could begin to unravel this self-love puzzle about my feelings of being separate from God, right? Connecting with divine power helped me learn to love myself as a soul. Souls aren't gay or straight or somewhere on the sexuality, gender, loving spectrum. Souls just are, right? So this weekend is the anniversary of Stonewall, and communities all over the world celebrate Pride in the month of June. And each and every person celebrating Pride is somewhere on their journey to solving their self-love puzzle about sexual orientation or gender identification or some similar puzzle. So when a CSL now shows up for a Pride event anywhere in the world, we're joined by dozens of other religious and spiritual communities because thankfully now there are places where being gay doesn't block you from access to worship or community. And we remain a place where everyone obviously is celebrated. Being accepted here can often cause those instant tears to flow. I've seen it in the room, right? So the third puzzle for me, or the fourth or however many I'm on, was about how to love my own personality, right? My own preferences about how life should go. And relationships are the mirrors that we look into throughout our lives. And as I was learning to love myself, I kept attracting relationships over the years where I was labeled as too controlling or too much of a neat freak. I really was. Or too intense or too emotional, right? So for years, I wondered if I was lovable at the level of being able to attract a partner or a wife of my own because I doubted myself so much. I had to unravel these other self-love puzzles before I could magnetize to my life a person who could reflect back to me the love that I desired. I had to heal my body issues. I had to accept my gayness fully. I had to find peace with my spiritual identity, embrace my own quirky personality to the point that I would rather be happy alone than settle with a partner who didn't appreciate my unique qualities. And when I had those self-love puzzles to solve, and I solved them to a certain tipping point, I was able to attract someone who could help me continue to find the missing pieces in those puzzles and keep working on them together. Solving puzzle after puzzle allowed me to kind of lower my walls and believe that other people loved me and appreciated me. And doing so helped me learn to value the right relationships and expand my web of connectivity. And doing that increases our social wealth because that can only be built on the foundation of self-love. But that's more my story. So I'm going to ask you again, what are your self-love life puzzles? What about yourself did you learn to doubt about your lovability in your childhood or your young adulthood? How are you seemingly different than everyone else? Those are the things that call you forward to greater healing toward the prize. So let's talk about the prize. The prize that is available to each and every one of us, if we can learn to love ourselves, is freedom. The prize is also joy and peace and harmony and abundance and wisdom and every other blessing that we desire. Do those sound familiar? Right? They're the words that we write down to use to describe God or the universal power, the qualities of that. The prize is a deep understanding of your God self. And when you understand that, your channel just opens for greater blessings. So we teach that we've got to live the qualities of God in order to have them. And this is what we mean by that. In order to live the life that we want to live, the life of our dreams, the life that calls us forward and inspires us, the life that we vision about in class, in order to live that life, we've got to be these qualities. And in order to be them, we absolutely have to love ourselves. We must do the soul work to learn to love ourselves. So what does pride have to do with that? As a symbol, pride is that Washington, D.C. escalator moment when we rise up from the depth of our self-loathing and shame and claim our place in the world just as we are. Your soul wants to come out of the closet and experience love. Your soul wants to unravel the puzzles of self-love and be free to be the God that it is, right? So how do we do that? I have 3 things to offer. The first of all, we have to continue to look in the mirror. We have to fully realize that we are human beings and stop being afraid of ourselves. There's a great spiritual teacher by the name of Panache Desai, and he said this in the most profound way when he said that we must stop resisting being human. Everything that makes us afraid or uncomfortable or ashamed or angry or sad are all normal human experiences. Everything that happens is normal because it happened. Stop resisting who you are and what your life has been like thus far, no matter what it is. You are a human being having a human experience. Yes, you are a spiritual being too, but your spiritual being is also having a human experience. Accept that. That's first. Second, we have to continue to be more and more honest about who we are and stop trying to hide who we are. We all have self-love puzzles we're solving. Claim them for yourself as yours to solve. I want to do an affirmation together. Will y'all play with me this morning? So I'm going to do an affirmation because words are so very powerful. We learn that every time in class. Think for a moment for one word that describes something you are learning to love about yourself. So think for a second. One word that describes something you're learning to love about yourself. I'm learning to love my blank. And when we get to that blank, I want you to say your own individual word. It could sound like, I'm learning to love my queerness, or I'm learning to love my anger, I'm learning to love my laziness, all right? Think of yours, okay? So we're going to say it 3 times. I am learning to love my... One more time. I am learning to love my... I am learning to love my... The truth sets you free. Start telling the truth about your life. And third, find as many mirrors as you can to reflect back to you your most magnificent self. See, we are social beings, so we all desire social wealth. Find your people. Right here in this room, you have found your tribe regarding your self-love puzzle about spirituality or God or whatever you call the piece that brought you here. But once you identify your other self-love puzzles, go find your people who are also freeing themselves from that same knot. Go to Weight Watchers or AA or an abuse recovery community or a club for introverts. Do they have a club for introverts? I don't know. But if you can't find your people, go online, because guess what? You can find anything online. Why do you need a tribe? You need a tribe because you can look in the mirror with those people who share your puzzle. And you'll no longer get to pretend that you're the only one. And chances are you will find others that are just a little further on the path of self-love than you are, and also find some who are inspired by the steps you have already taken toward your freedom. These kinds of connections lead to greater opportunities, greater blessings, and greater wealth of every kind. The bottom line is solving a self-love puzzle is best done in the presence of people who understand your puzzle. They're solving it themselves, or they've already solved it and are helping others by example. These are the kind of people you find at the Pride events in your life. It's all about mirrors. So I found this poem, we're going to close with it, by my favorite contemporary poet, John Rodell. He uses a little bit of colorful language, but we're safe here, right? I'm going to do it anyway, right? And this is what he wrote. He said, "My love, if you don't like the way that you look, it's probably because you have chosen the wrong mirror to look at yourself in. Stop using other people as a mirror to see your reflection in, especially if that other person is an asshole." There's the word. Assholes make the worst mirrors. They only want to reflect your blemishes and your weaknesses and your fault lines and your sins. Don't blame them for making you feel bad. You're the one looking for them to tell you how you look. Of course they will tell you that you're ugly. Of course they will say you aren't enough. They're assholes. What did you expect? While we're at it, stop using your bank account as a mirror. It's a liar. It doesn't really show you who you really are. Neither does your car, or your grades, or your awards, or your Instagram, or your past mistakes, or your diagnosis, or your late bills, or your failures. None of those things make very good mirrors. If you want to know how you actually look, I suggest that you hold a baby for a bit. Pay attention to how a baby will look at you. To a baby, you are a garden of 1,000,000 wildflowers. You are a giant. You are an ancient warrior protecting them from monsters and uncomfortable rashes. You fill up their sky like a brilliant supernova. To a baby laying in your arms, you are both the cradle and the lullaby. A baby will gaze at you with wide eyes and an uncontrollable smile because they have just come from heaven and they know divinely crafted beauty when they see it. They see the miracle in you. They see the miracle in you. They see the miracle in you. Babies make the best mirrors. Look at yourself the way a baby looks at you. For too long you have let dirty and broken shards of glass tell you who you are. Their reflection is corrupt. Stop trusting them. Let the innocent show you who you are. They see your light. They see you for who you are, capable, strong, beautiful, burning, blooming, becoming. In the time you have left, be kind to yourself and choose what reflections you believe with the utmost care. See you in September. You're going to make it. I see the leaves change. I swear it. Love, your soul. John Rodell. So my closing remark is, may you find the mirrors that help you see your inherent God-given value. Find a place where you can fly your freak flag proudly. Give yourself a pride parade. Let us all march in it with you. It's about self-love. The prize awaits you, and it often shows up with instant tears of joy. Will you pray with me? Oh, take a deep breath. And just feel that gratitude. Gratitude for yourself. Gratitude for how far you've come. Gratitude for the self-love that bubbles up within you and shows on the faces of those who love you well. I'm so grateful for this community. I'm so grateful for this knowing that we are love in form, and nothing ever takes away from that. Know that with me, and so it is. And so it is. Thank you.